everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trendwatcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, a European quarterly magazine, but also bi-weekly newsletter and a huge growing LinkedIn group. And I'm also the architect of the IT subway map, and we'll talk about it later. But in the next hour, in this live webinar, we will talk about end-to-end ecosystem transformation. We did a survey with the EFESO Management Consultants, and I have an interesting conversation in the next hour. So, please join us. So, like I said, I have two experts in our call. So, next to me on the left, we have Kristof de Koster. Welcome, Kristof.
Hello, Martijn.
So, Kristof, you are Vice President of EFESO in Belgium. So, tell me a bit about your background before we get into the topic.
Yeah, sure. So, I've been working in supply chain for the last 23 years, half of that in operational roles, covering planning, logistics, customer service, procurement. And since 2011, went into consulting, focusing on transforming companies within supply chain logistics environments, both purely from an excellence point of view, but also from post-merger integrations, etc. So with a strong focus in the last years, of course, looking at excellence, but also looking into the new topics around sustainability, decarbonization, scope 3 improvements, and building ecosystems to enforce collaboration between different companies in the value chain.
Okay, thanks. And next to Kristof, we have Jörn and Grosse-Wilde. Jörn, welcome.
Yeah, happy to be here. Hi, Martin.
Hi. Maybe you can also have a quick word about your background, and then we get into the topic.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. And so I'm partner for supply chain management within EFESO. I'm helping now clients since more than 20 years in enhancing their supply chain operations and also performance. I'm helping the clients to develop leading supply chain strategies, positioning the supply chain and enabling their supply chain as a strategic asset, to reach their performance goals with the business. And doing that, we are defining typically the processes, the organizations, and then finding and implementing the right tools for the clients. Happy to be here in this webinar and looking forward to the next 60 minutes.
All right, some household rules. So this webinar will be recorded, and the PDF will be made available afterwards within 48 hours, so you can rewatch it or watch it on YouTube. There are two ways to interact with us. You see the chat functionality on the right-hand side, so you can have questions and over there, and you can have remarks. But I will be tracking down the Q&A functionality on the right-hand side. So if you have questions to Jörn or Kristof or myself, please use the Q&A functionality. I will track it during this conversation. If the questions are in line of the conversation we'll be having, I ask these questions immediately so that then you get your answer quickly. If not, I will reserve the questions for later on. So after, at the end, we'll have a Q&A. But after the Q&A, we have an extra 30 minutes. So at 5 o'clock CET, Jörn, Kristof, and myself will be sitting down in this virtual lounge. You can sit down at the table and then have a further conversation with us. So as of this moment, I will put off my camera so you can enlarge your screen and have a better view on the slides. And then we get to the topic. So kicking off. So this is what we've seen happening in the last 4 years. A lot of black swans. COVID-19 in 2020, war in Ukraine 2022, Gaza last year. And for some companies, CSRD might be seen as a black swan. And we had interviews based on our survey we did together with EFESO, with some supply chain executive, and Marie Pia De Caro from Pernod Ricard is saying, we are talking about gray swans, some things you could expect. So these are the things. So we see all kind of ripple effects, shortages, bullwhips, and known in the supply chain world, but it's also hitting the boards in general, and that might lead to recessions all in the end. Jörn, what's your take? What do you see with your customers when you look at this slide and all these black swans?
Yeah, first of all, I think this is really a great summary of what we have been doing and what we have been seeing as triggers from our clients to get into talk to launch projects. Yeah, so I think I can reconfirm on each and every point that you have here. However, coming from the supply chain side, I see not only the negative portion of all these activities, yeah, because this was really the point where supply chain got the attention within the companies that it deserves. Yeah. So for each of these topics, these are topics that are on board level, that were discussed there intensively. Yeah, and therefore supply chain was immediately sitting also with them there. Yeah, to discuss it. That was the positive connotation that we got, that I also got from my clients, talking with them these different topics. Yeah, and now and I think this is a nice link also to the study that we have been running jointly together here, is all of these events, Black, Gray, Swan events that we have listed here, they all triggered short notice activities like command centers, yeah, or task forces, yeah, to solve the immediate issues. Yeah, but I think now the question is to get away from that more firefighting task force mode into a more stable environment. And we say, how can we ensure that we can in the future react smarter and more efficient on these activities? Yeah, and this is more or less a little bit summarizing the discussions also that we have with our clients in the past years.
So we talk about ecosystem, and 2 years ago, McKinsey started writing about business ecosystem, and Gartner picked it up, supply chain ecosystem. But there were no pictures of ecosystem, so we created one within supply chain media, and this is how it looks like. Basically, we're getting away from the linear supply chains to the more broadly fanning out ecosystem like you're seeing here. So with all kind of other supporting companies, but also government, social media, etc. And it's getting circular. So basically the notion is here that companies should visualize all the stakeholders and the different kind of flows of goods, information, money, and also people possibly. Jörn, my question to you, how many of your EFESO customers are visualizing their whole ecosystem, are aware of all their players?
Okay, assuming that this is more a rhetoric question, actually, but I would like to see differently. How many would like to have that picture? I would say majority, 80-90% of them would like to have that picture. But reality, how many do that really have? It's to be honest, I maybe find one or two if I search a little bit longer. But that's exactly the issue. I think along single supply streams or single upstream or downstream lines, there might be some very good knowledge about the tier 1, the tier 2 suppliers or also customers. But in that breadth, as you have shown that here on this picture, actually no one has it. And that was exactly then one of the big tasks, to identify at first to whom should I talk to in order to ensure availability of my products, or to meet customer demands, to allocate the products to the right downstream channels. Yeah. So that's unfortunately the answer. There's a long way to go to have that kind of transparency.
So we talk about ecosystem, and we talk about transformation and ecosystem transformation in the survey and in the next 55 minutes. So, but first to introduce, I'm also a creator of this supply map. We have done it on IT vendors, supply chain software vendors. We have also done it on consulting. So this is one on the Q4 edition of this year. And I don't go into depth with all this, but all the major players from the management consultants in the strategic side, the big four, they're all in there, but also more focused boutiques are in there. And of course, EFESO is also positioned then. And basically you see all kind of service lines on supply chain consulting from strategic, tactical, and operational level. And we have mapped them out how EFESO is scoring all this service line. But Jörn, maybe you can explain it way better yourself, what EFESO is bringing to the market before we go to the survey results.
Yeah, definitely happy to do that and give a very brief overview on that. Yeah, so we are a fast-growing pure player in operations consulting, operating globally. Meaning, really, we are focusing on operations, and operations definitely includes supply chain to a very strong point. And we are really focusing on that. We are not doing anything in finance or other elements. And that's also where we get the strengths from. We are covering the entire consulting process from early strategy development over conceptual design up to implementation and making the results visible for our clients. And we are doing that on a global scale. You'll see here the map. It's not randomly that there are many of the cities or many of our office locations are located in Europe, but we indeed have a global footprint serving also clients in the US and Asia, making sure that we reflect also the global supply chains in our footprint. We are doing that with more than 900 people, not more than 900 colleagues. Interesting point is here that really majority of our people have really an engineering and operations background. That means we really talk the same language. We have the knowledge about what we are doing there. People are coming from more than 45 nationalities. Meanwhile, number of projects, of course, we are doing many projects here. We have a growth ambition that we want to continue. In the last 5 years, we grew by 3 times, and we wanna of course continue that way with a very interesting service portfolio that we have on the next page.
Yeah, here it
Exactly.
is.
This is what we are covering. Yeah, we have four main pillars. One is production operational excellence, where we're doing everything from starting to define the operation strategy, including the industrial footprint. Where do we want to produce? Design for excellence and so on. Then we have supply chain excellence. This is what Kristof and myself are representing, mainly also here coming from the strategic portion, linking supply chain strategy to the business strategy, and then detailing that out into operations and day-to-day business. Then we have a third pillar, idea to value. That means everything linked to R&D, product development, and specialized services. Yeah, we have colleagues focusing purely on lab excellence, sales service excellence, and so on. Important point is whenever we run our projects, we have 4 dimensions. We are covering, of course, the element of process dynamics. Yeah, so we understand exactly how things are working. But we are also putting a strong emphasis on human dynamics. Others would call that change management. We also see the urgent need with all the clients to bring the solutions that we develop into day-to-day action, and that's often a linking point that many of our competitors do not focus on, that they even neglect. And of course, digital transformation, sustainability is also at the core of our heart whenever we do our projects.
Okay,
that's in a nutshell
cool.
What we are doing.
Yeah, right. So EFESO partnered up with Supply Chain Media to do a survey on the end-to-end ecosystem transformation, a mouthful. But the good point is we also addressed the human dynamics element, and of course digital transformation and sustainability. So all these elements we have taken into account in the survey. So we did a survey around the summertime, at the end of the summertime, and we focused mainly on European supply chain executives. So we have a good response on that area. Close to 100 supply chain executives. On the higher level, we have asked the supply chain executives a lot of questions about transformation, and we'll dig into that. So Kristof, to start first, what do you see as the main drivers for this supply chain transformation according to these respondents?
Well, when we look at the results, 2 main elements came out. On one side, not surprisingly, business strategy as one of the main drivers why companies would engage into supply chain transformations. Secondly, was the drive for excellence, continuous improvement, which, let's say, were, of course, the results to be expected. Other elements like business continuity, financial results, for some companies certainly also were a driver, but were not the ones that were standing out. Let me share some words on the 2 topics. So business strategy on one side, it seems, of course, obvious that this is a key driver for supply chain transformation. When we link that to how companies and clients come to us today, we do see a kind of trend change in terms of business strategies. And I think it's important to reflect on that also, because if we think back several years, a decade, when companies were driving business strategies, they were looking 5-10 years ahead. And then based on that, supply chain people went to work and could really drive long-term transformation roadmaps that really could be carved in stone and said, okay, this is a direction that we can take, and we start building how that supply chain should look like. When we look back over the last years, and we talked about all the events that have happened and that disrupted also supply chains, you see that those timelines have shortened dramatically. So
Yep.
if you look at the business strategy, it's looking at, okay, 1, 2, 3 years ahead, which of course also changes the dynamic in terms of transformation that you can drive. The transformation in that sense needs to be focused on much faster results, and also, of course, looking at, okay, can we still make a step change? If so, then the time to realize it is quite often shorter than before. I mean, it's also that the way of approaching transformation and what you then exactly want to build also gets a different focus. And I think that's also linking to the second topic, driving for excellence. We are indeed more focused, and that's also what we see and do, is driving much more programs as of let's say, continuous improvement excellence program, where continuously you are looking at improving supply chain performance, supply chain excellence, both through processes, through people, through systems, without really having the end goal already there, but continuously making additional steps to improve maturity, so that you can also accompany, or let's say facilitate that shorter focus, or let's say shorter timeline on a business strategy perspective.
Yeah, and still, what I have seen in the last few years, and it's already happening. I think 15 years ago, when I saw a survey by McKinsey, that there is still a gap between business strategy and supply chain strategy, and I think that that's still maybe still paramount. What you're thinking?
It is so. I think business strategy is quite often focused on, okay, top line, where do we, let's say, geographically deploy, what are the lines, product lines, let's say, areas that we want to move into, what are the markets, what is the customer base. So it's really more focused on the go-to-market part. And then indeed, in level 2 or level 3, then a supply chain person needs to think how to support that. Which, of course, every company is kept alive by go-to-market, which is undoubtedly true. Although, we missed out on certain opportunities to leverage, of course, supply chain as also a value creator across the value chain. And I see indeed there, it's quite often staggered. Well, integrating that from the start would leverage much more benefits.
So before we get to the next question, I got a question from the audience about the respondents. Actually, they are in all kind of industry, from agricultural to chemical to automotive, in the B2B environment, up to the fast-moving consumer goods and a few retail. So it's the whole ecosystem what I've shown represented on manufacturers. These are the respondents of so 80-90% are manufacturing companies, a few wholesale and retail companies. Those are the main respondents, and mainly in Western Europe. But most of them, they have an EMEA or a global responsibility. So that's the audience of the survey response. So that's basically in that sense. Kristof, we started out on the decision drivers. So what are the main goals for the supply chain transformation according to the study?
Well, it looks a bit like the golden triangle, I would say. So on one side, clearly at the top, looking at increasing resilience and agility, which is, let's say, looking back again on how supply chains were put under pressure over the last years. Everybody is indeed looking how to increase that. Quite often, I think, still also a buzzword where I see a lot of let's say also people struggling with what does it now mean in terms of my supply chain or value chain? What do we then really need to do? But clearly, everybody's really looking at resilience, agility. Next to that, combining it with, indeed, still a very strong supply chain cost focus. So, and certainly, I think there in the different industries, those focal points also will be a little bit different. And thirdly, also looking into indeed new business models, new service models, which also means that, let's say, more on the structural side, companies do tend to move in a quite structural way. Because, let's say, if I think back a couple of years, then indeed you would have seen service cost, maybe even resilience before all the crisis. Resilience agility was maybe not even on the map. But also there was a much more structural way of, okay, we don't need to rethink all the business models or all the service models, which now really comes into play, meaning that companies are really on the crossroads. Okay, which direction are we going, both structurally in terms of business model, and then how do we build the best supply chain or value chain around that? And that's, I think, really a shift that we see, that really, let's say, that renewed focus, and where then to balance between, on one side, finding the right level of cost effectiveness, together with indeed creating resilience and agility, because at the end of the day, we all know that more resilience, more agility also comes with a cost. So
Yep.
somewhere you need to find the balance and make the proper trade-offs to make that happen.
Yeah. So what we also did some interviews with supply chain executives who participated in the survey. So one of them is DSM Firmenich. Well, like the company is saying already, that's a merger. So DSM from the Netherlands and Firmenich from Switzerland. And interestingly enough, DSM had more a make-to-stock environment, whereas Firmenich has a make-to-order environment. So these are two, I wouldn't say conflicting, but two different kind of operating model. But now they want to create synergies, being in now a merged company. So what we see in the economic environment, still a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and that will also play in this field, isn't it, Kristof?
Absolutely. I think undoubtedly, and you have different ways also in M&A activity. We always see, okay, even if the economy is going down, and it opens up opportunities for M&A, but quite often it's the trigger really to really start rethinking certain elements. On one side, because there's obviously a business case that needs to be delivered. On the other side, you often see that companies that come together with different approaches, different structures, different footprints, different processes. Yeah, it's the time to take decisions, let's say, how to make best of both worlds. And it's definitely the moment or a trigger that we see. Although from our results in the survey, it was not, let's say, one of the top answers. But again, not everybody is tangled into M&A activities.
No. But I think the most important thing is you mentioned this triangle to make a business case and to make it tangible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and I think there also additional complexity comes into supply chain. But in the past, indeed, you had the triangle between, okay, do I go for cost effectiveness, product leadership, or service leadership? Yeah. In the meantime, we have additional dimensions in terms of resilience, agility, flexibility. That have gained much more ground, so making that finding the balance between those elements even more difficult.
Yeah. All right. Jörn, regarding the hurdles, what did you see as the main hurdles for a transformation?
Yeah, that's a good question, because here I think we have seen here very many good reasons for change. Yeah, why should we do that transformation? And therefore, we wanted to understand a little bit better, why is it not running smoothly? Why are not so many companies kicking off transformation projects already in the last 2 years? Yeah, interesting results that we got in on that question. First is business strategy not clear. Yeah, what we also mentioned in the previous question. Yeah, so here we are really the clients, or many companies still lack with the transition from the business strategy. What does it mean for the supply chain strategy? And also lacking to have the guts to say, okay, this is the direction, and let's start moving into that direction. If it's wrong, let's keep an eye on that and turn around and adjust that strategy. Yeah, but this is one point where we found out, okay, this is delaying the transformation. The other topic is financial results and budgets. Yeah, of course, there's always the wish of a very fast self-funding for the project, but supply chain transformation projects need some time. Yeah, you can't run that within 3 months or 6 months. Yeah, but you need to really stand that through and develop a robust business case for the benefits that will come with that transformation. The third point that we heard is a struggle to prioritize. And unfortunately, one message that we heard that we hear multiple times when talking also at conferences with customers is that there's a conflict of priorities with other large-scale transformation projects, and the dominant project here is often SAP. Yeah, clients that are in an S4 transformation that consumes a lot of resources, and these are unfortunately in many cases the same resources that we would also need for supply chain transformation projects. Yeah, in establishing end-to-end planning or whatever kind of transformations we want to run. Yeah, so these are the top three messages that we learned during that survey.
Yeah. So lower down, you see also macroeconomics and geopolitical effects. That may not be a hurdle, but we found it interesting enough to ask more about how do you regard this. So the next question was, what are the most important geopolitical forces for a transformation? So maybe you can extend on that, Jörn.
Yeah, of course, political tensions or even wars. That's always a point that makes supply chain or business in general very, very difficult, and that really distracts from going into transformations. Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, I think many of the things here are not really surprising if you talk about the economic development in China and their fast advancements across many industries. Yeah,
Yep.
Not only automotive industry, which hits Europe and especially Germany very hard. Yeah, but also pharmaceutical, also chemicals, also e-commerce trade. All these things, there are many new competitors arising and getting strong very, very fast, together with the political tension that comes along with that. But what really was surprising for me is the top answer that we got here is the increasing regulation of the EU. Yeah, this was really, of course, in all the discussions we always hear that notion. We need to have we need to consider the Supply Chain Act. We have to consider the German Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz and all these things with a lot of additional administrative work. Yeah, of course, benefits are also linked to that, but not from a supply chain perspective, and that really keeps many people busy and distracting also management attention from other topics that are on the desk of the supply chain managers and leadership teams.
So basically, you're saying there's a political uncertainty and unreliability. So we know it in supply chain, but maybe not so much in political sense in Europe.
Exactly, and that this is indeed probably a very, very European perspective. Yeah. Also, we also see, of course, the question mark behind the election in the US. But nevertheless, it won't get easier for Europe in the future, no matter how that election will go out at the end.
No, that will probably trigger off some trade wars and extension of tariffs and that kind of stuff. What we didn't mention here, but some elements are industry specific. Look like the chemical industry across Europe. They are being hit by higher energy prices. Is it also something you are experiencing that is a new dimension for European companies, the energy prices?
Yes, definitely, and I take that from many discussions, and just last week I've been to a chemicals client, and he was outlining exactly, okay, what are the implications that he has due to the high energy price, including a shutdown of the equipment for a longer time, in the last 2 years. Yeah, but then now really deliberately thinking of, okay, how do I run my assets, and especially where do I invest for the future. Yeah. Yeah. So overall, we must say that Europe is putting is making its life pretty difficult with these regulations and rules. Yeah, and especially from the supply chain side, you get immediately the feedback on that.
Yeah, quite clear. And interestingly enough, a surprising answer to this survey. Kristof, we talked about operating models before, and we talked about ecosystem transformation. So maybe you can talk about what does mean operating models in this sense of transformation.
Yeah, sure. So I think what came out of the study is when we were asking, okay, what is then really something that you need to do? Because on one side, there's clear ambition to increase resilience, agility, be more cost effective, etc., be more sustainable. what we need new business models. What's then the key driver to make that happen? And one thing that came out is really it's the moment to rethink operating models. On one side, not because let's say they completely failed over the last years, but truly because they are not suited to support all the ambitions, or at least the focus objectives that they have and that companies have. And on one side, we've been talking about, let's say, or if we reflect back on this, let's say, the issues and the disruption that we had, then we see that companies that had different business models in place, that they actually came through all the disruption in a better way than the ones that are really focused on one direction. Yeah? So the diversification or the differentiation or the segmentation between different models actually offers opportunities to actually install a more resilient setup, a more agile setup. And you see that companies at that in this moment also are recognizing that and say, okay, this is maybe the right moment to start reflecting on that. Yeah, of course, if we think back about the unclarity around business strategies and also, sometimes the lack of prioritization of clear decisions, it will not be easy to do that. However, there are a number of things that we also see today and questions that also force companies, so let's say, or already our first steps towards new business models is then purely because they are rethinking, let's say, footprints, considering again to reshore or nearshore, or let's say, or to change certain product locations or source flows. Absolutely, that is one element of the story. Another story is, of course, also how is the future process landscape going to look like?
Yeah.
And of course, if you want to indeed become more resilient, more agile, that will also need to come with a higher supply chain maturity. Also means that certain step changes need to be made. And clearly, with let's say current operating models, that is not supported. So really, there, let's say, having, I would not say completely only having the guts or the ambition, but really it's the moment to dare and challenge yourself at this moment to say, okay, what would be other models that would fit those objectives, and that also at the same moment deal with the fact that maybe not all strategies are completely clear at this moment.
Yeah. Good point. I've been taught, one supply chain doesn't fit all. So companies have several supply chains, from make to stock to make to order, and you name it. And I think that the supply chain people should explain it to their commercial colleagues better. That when to go left and when to go right. So that's an element. So segmentation is very important. What I hear you saying, both product segmentation and customer segmentation, or even product market segmentation. I think this is also an important element to have that clearly on your radar screen across your company, so that who to serve in which way.
That's absolutely true. It's about creating the options. And I think if there's one thing that we've learned is that, let's say, a value chain that is completely built with one purpose, then there's also a likelihood or a large chance that it might not fit the purpose because you don't have clarity on what is about to come. So building it for different situations, creating value chains that are also differentiated and that offer multiple options. That is, I think, at this moment, clearly the way to go. And that will also allow you, whatever then the business ambition is, to go left or right, or at least to have the options already built in terms of to support it.
Yeah. So we did also an interview with the CSO of Covestro, and that's a chemical company being acquired by Saudis. But the interesting thing is they want to be more bio-based. So they want to be more sustainable. They want to have bio-based raw materials as input for their chemical industry, and that is quite new. That requires a lot how to get the bio-based raw materials. But in the end, Covestro is totally aware that in the near future, more companies will be looking for this bio-based raw materials. So in the end, you have to look into the future where you're headed. But it is also an interesting conversation we had with the Covestro to see, okay, there will be a new kind of ecosystem, a new kind of business model, and that's quite of interest. So, Kristof, how many companies are in that phase that looking ahead into the future where it will be headed with this sustainable raw materials and bio-based environment?
Let's say bio-based, certainly not all of them. So I think they're really on the bio side. It's more a minority. Does everybody today has sustainability on their radar? Absolutely.
Yeah.
What we see there is more, okay, what's the next step and how do we activate? How do you operationalize sustainability going forward?
Good point. So we also ask about important capabilities. So maybe you can explain a bit what this means.
Yeah. So indeed. So when we're talking, okay, what does it mean? Let's say to become more resilient, and what are then really the capabilities that a company is looking for? And clearly, when we were asking, agility came out completely on top. Although let's say there was little differentiation between the different answers. So agility, flexibility. So agility on one side, yeah, what is the speed at which you can respond to any change that is coming, how agile and how fast can your organization really respond. Next to that, also flexibility in terms of, yeah, do you have different options in place? Already alluded to segmentation, the differentiation of supply chains, and have different possibilities, different ways of operating is of course one to that. But clearly, yeah, having the flexibility built in to your ways of working also came out very high. Collaboration. We'll pause this for a moment. We'll come back later on collaboration, a specific topic, because there's definitely something to say on that topic. And visibility. So visibility in terms of, yeah, do we have an oversight? Let's say if we have a certain event, if something is happening, or if we want to change, do we have visibility on the impacts across our value chain about what that transformation needs to be? Again, thinking back on our first view, not so many companies today have that end-to-end visibility. They might have it in their head. They have certainly not all of them have it clearly mapped, and certainly don't have, let's say, the data to back it up with sufficient numbers, volumes, and values.
Yeah. So we also interviewed the supply chain officer of BSH. That's the home appliance division of Bosch. And interestingly enough, they created a task force during COVID, but now they moved this task force because of COVID and to respond into a day-to-day environment. So they want to keep up with this task force mentality into their supply chain environment and their planning environment. Do you see that more happening, Kristof, that the companies who have had a task force during COVID, that they have this task force mentality also ingrained in the current day-to-day business?
Twofold. I see two ways. So I see a group of my clients who said, look, this was really crisis management. We installed it back then with a specific purpose, sometimes a very narrow scope. And at a certain moment, they let go. More mature companies who really saw like, hey, this is a valuable element that we need to install, took it by hand and actually said, okay, what does it now mean going forward? Not only from, okay, how can we further support it with proper tools? How do we also change then our processes to actually start working in a different way? Because on one side, what say task force learned us is to focus more on what are the elements where we really need to now take decisions on to actually improve or to mitigate a certain risk. And actually, some of our clients really took that by hand and said, okay, now let's go more into indeed an exception-based management, which of course needs on two things. On one side, yeah, a different way of arranging processes and higher process maturity. On the other side, also in the way people work. So on the human dynamics part of that, yeah, it requires a different way of looking at things. You need to have more trust in the information that you use, and make sure that, okay, you need to trust the tools, the processes, and really have the ability and the attitude to say to take the decision purely on an exception base.
So, thanks. We also ask, because EFESO is also, servicing transversal capabilities for their clients. So we also ask about them to look at sustainability. So maybe, Kristof, you can elaborate on what we have surveyed on sustainability goals.
Yeah. So our ask was, okay, we know that sustainability is anyway high on the agenda for transformation in the coming years. But what we were interested in is more looking at, okay, within the sustainability area, if you look at your action plans, strategies, objectives, what is really the priority for you? So what will really drive, what will be the elements that really drive transformation going forward? What came out is there that scope 3 reductions, both upstream and downstream, are very high on the priority list together with sustainable packaging. A result which for me is not surprising, and it for me confirms also again, certainly on the upstream part, where in the past I think companies were more within the four walls and also more on the downstream part focusing. Just confirms to me that the importance, for example, on managing the supplier base, on setting up and maturing also the procurement area as part of the entire value chain, is gaining a lot of importance, and certainly for sustainability objectives will also be a key driver going forward. So I think that's definitely a confirmation that also in that field, and the link between indeed supply chain procurement and looking at it from an end-to-end perspective will be a key element to also drive sustainable transformations in the future.
Yeah, what surprised me a bit was the lower end of product and parts passport. I think in the end, in the next years, you will see the requirements, probably from the EU, that all kind of products should mention a product passport. So where are your products and the parts coming from? So that's has scored a bit low in my opinion. So some industries are already requiring a product and parts passport. Isn't that what your thinking is? That it's scoring a bit low. Kristof?
It's scoring a little bit low. On the other hand, I don't have a clear answer. It might have to do with, because maybe it's more driven also from a compliance and regulatory point of view, that say, okay, in supply chain, we'll deal with it once it's really, let's say, opposed to us. Might not consider it as that supply chain needs to drive this topic. So yeah, that could be a reason. But to be honest, yeah.
Okay, now that should be determined for the near future, maybe for another survey. Jörn, let's talk about digital and AI. So what is the answer on that survey?
Yeah, especially to find out or to drill down a little bit deeper onto the digital question, what are the digital tools and what are the AI tools that you want to use, and especially in which areas. We wanted to get a little bit light into the different technologies that are there to get a priority ranking as we see it here. Yeah, number one, highest priority, mostly mentioned, is the end-to-end control tower. Yeah, end-to-end control tower really as a centralized platform that provides real-time visibility and control over the entire supply chain. I think that's a little bit the wish that is linked to that. Yeah, with an integrated perspective on the data that comes from various sources internally, but also externally from suppliers and from customers.
Yeah.
And to have that integrated perspective, that's indeed a topic that is high on the agenda. That is pursued with a top priority. Yeah, to account for the needs that Kristof just elaborated previously. Yeah, visibility, decision support, and collaboration. Then with a perspective on AI, they want to say, okay, where are here the priorities? And for me, not a surprise is that AI expectations in production and supply planning is ranked here pretty high, because here we are also seeing, when we're talking to to clients or also to software providers. Very promising solutions, that help here really in the day-to-day business, where you have concrete and tangible benefits out of the use of AI. And then third point with machine learning in forecasting, this is actually a topic that we are also helping clients with since couple of years. There are good good processes, good approaches, and good results, that we see here. And for me, at the end, this priority list is in line with what we hear from the regular conversations with my clients. Then the other topics, digital supply chain twins, ranked here in the middle. I think the over expectation that was there going back 2-3 years, that a little bit consolidated, because people or clients realize it's a very big effort to have a supply chain twin if I really want to make that complete and not only focused on single functions. And the rest, I think that gives an interesting list, interesting overview on the priorities that companies set in these days from the supply chain perspective.
Yeah. So in an earlier conversation we had, you talked about AI, and you mentioned that a lot of the AI being used in companies is still rule-based. So that's something maybe very
Exactly.
old-fashioned from 20, 30 years ago, having an operation research background myself. So that's good to explain that is also still part of AI.
Yes, exactly. That's still a part of AI. But this is linked also to another interesting observation. When looking at the priorities that the board level sets for the different functions, AI is always ranked among the top 3, top 5 topics that they set out for the next year. And if you are now as a supply chain executive position a project and want to have a funding within the company, if there's an AI component in that's much easier to sell than if you just say a machine learning or even older technology, rule-based technologies. So this is a door opener for new budgets to pursue beneficial programs in the organization.
So the end-to-end control tower. So some companies like Gartner is calling it now a command center, to give a different flavor. So 10 years ago you had logistic control towers and procurement control towers still siloed, and now they want to create overall end-to-end. So from planning to procurement to logistic and fulfillment. What I see now around me, there's still a lot to do, how to work with this kind of command centers and to make it very useful, also cross-functional to other parts of the business like commercial, etc. So that's what I see. Collaboration is also mentioned earlier in the survey. So we also have a question about collaboration. What do you aim for, and what do you think is important? So Jörn, explain a bit more. What do you get out of this survey about that?
I think collaboration. Where we have seen the big push in during the COVID time, and then especially post-COVID with a component shortage, was a field on supplier collaboration, which is also linked here highest. I want to make sure that I keep the feedstock, that I keep the supplies here, and that I'm not suffering from the wrong allocation of my supplier. So clients are seeking, or have identified their core suppliers, have identified what are the essential, what are the core critical products that we get from that, and therefore for me it's also not a surprise that we see this linked here or ranked here on the highest stage. Customer collaboration, it's a logical counterpart of that. If I have a strong connection, if I have a strong collaboration with my customer, with understanding better and more advanced in time their demand, their shift in demands, and these directions, I have more time to react, and I can better serve my customers. Therefore, for me, this is the logical link up to the supplier collaboration. And the third one, the collaboration with logistics partners, that also goes here hand in hand. I don't wanna have missed on time in full shipment just due to shortage on the logistic provider side. Yeah, and then what is also included here is the collaboration with the logistics providers on the entire transport management part. Yeah, also whether I wanna run that on my own or whether I delegate that out to the logistics providers who help me to free up resources on my side and operate that business. What is a little bit more surprising here is then the link or the very big gap to the other collaboration parts. Of course, innovation, incubation, and collaboration with consultants is not ranked too high. I think there we all have to work stronger on that point. But then also the use of contract manufacturers. This is something where I have seen that in my personal experience over the last 2 years, really ramping up in the priority. Therefore, I'm a little bit surprised about that low ranking here.
Yeah. So before we get to the near future of 2027, I was wondering, if you look at the top 3 suppliers, customers, and logistic partners, are they all willing or up to the transformation and collaboration?
Generally, I would say yes, but of course that's very very strongly linked to their own maturity. How far are they, and what's their power position within the value chain? Yeah, if the client is the 15th company asking for or aiming for a stronger collaboration, with customers or suppliers. And not really having a large share of wallet with the respective partner, then it's more difficult. But in general, what we see, the portion of collaboration or the ambition to emphasize collaboration and to at least bring in a structured process to that is widely that we see widely across all industries.
So Professor Carlos Cardona has written a book, The Power of Two, and he published it in 2008. And I interviewed him, and I know him quite well. Basically, he's saying you can only partner strategically with up to 10 companies. So either on a supplier, customer, or logistics side. So that's something that's limiting. So you can only be married to 10 companies strategically. That's what he's saying. So maybe that's also for the companies to choose wisely who you would like to collaborate with on a strategic level. But maybe, Jörn, we get into the phase where we are looking into the future. We ask also the respondents, what do you expect? What do you want in 2027 and compared to what you are doing right now?
Yeah, and we see here the transformation target picture, of the clients where we would say, okay, 80-90% of them wanna reach that level, where we say that the future of supply chain management needs to be tackled. And the perspective is here that there will be AI-powered planning systems that help us or that help the clients also to optimize processes. Yeah, while extended S&OP will foster collaboration with ecosystem partners. They want to have flexible and hybrid manufacturing footprints, to ensure agility across their network. And this is also supported by a technology-enabled workforce that really knows how to apply the tools, how to use the tools, and how to react in an efficient, fast mode on new circumstances. Yeah, and at the end, everything is supported by value-based learning academies. Yeah, that will enable the employees to thrive in this new area of intelligent supply chains. That's a little bit the picture that the participants of the survey have drawn for their near future of the supply chain.
But look at it, and then when I looked at the results, when you look at the scores in 2024 of each of these elements, that's mostly about 10-20% are doing this kind of thing. And when they being asked, what are you expecting in 2027, that reaches to 70, 80, and sometimes 90s. So my comment and my view is there's a huge gap with all these elements where they are now compared to 2027. So my question to you is, Jörn, is it very realistic to claim to be there in 2027 to get all this?
To be very very open, to be very very blunt here, I think for the majority of the companies, this is probably not the feasible goal, but it sets the North Star, it sets the direction, and there will be a couple of companies that manage to prioritize the right projects, to get the fundings for the projects, to have a clear strategic guidance also from the leadership. If these preconditions are set, yeah, then I see a couple of companies being able to reach that situation. Yeah, but you need to have these preconditions to be fulfilled.
Okay, clear. So we started out with the ecosystem. You have to visualize it, and my recommendation is, if you have done this, and only if you have done this so far, but if you have done this, the next phase would be, if you have visualized your ecosystem, then you have a discussion internally. Where do you expect disruptions, bottlenecks on one hand, but also where do you find synergies with the customers and suppliers when you want to seek collaboration? So that's my take. Jörn, getting back on that, would it be helpful to have this kind of ecosystem visualization to decide where to look for collaboration and where to start all this?
Yes, absolutely. I think mapping out that such an ecosystem is definitely helpful. Of course, you have to be careful about when discussing the depth of this mapping out. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think at first the visualization, understanding what are the key players and what are the relationship. That's a perfect exercise, valuable exercise that really helps to bring the supply chain to the next level and to make it to ensure that the supply chain is a strategic asset of the company.
All right. So we're almost at the end of this live hour about the survey. We have some extra time about to have some questions. I get a question from the audience now. In emergency services, they often use tabletop exercises to improve agile, flexible, and collaborative responses between the key players and the responding officers. How could we get companies to organize these things as well, and maybe in a structured way? Kristof, do you have an answer?
I saw the question. I think it's a very interesting one. In that sense, I do think to be able to let's say in disruption and crisis situation, to respond also as a supply chain team or as, let's say, supply chain together with commercial, together with production, to, let's say, have a more or less oiled machine to deal with certain elements. I think you need to train, and I think organizing situations that actually allow people to think how would we operate, and actually also start training and rehearsing those situations. I think that can help. That's one element. So I think definitely on the learning path, I think this is something that companies today are not doing, but definitely should start doing. The other element is on that is, yeah, it's also how do we organize for the future. Today, most companies have a very let's say structural hierarchical way of setting up organizations. You could also go more into a situational setup where indeed you bring people together around, let's say, based on the topic and not based on the function. And that's another way, which again involves a lot of change and a different dynamic between people, which you also need to monitor and train. But I think it's definitely thinking not beyond, let's say, what will be the process and the tools that we need, but how do we bring people together and have them work in a different way as teams to be, let's say, best equipped to deal with certain situations. So I think that proves again that let's say that becoming more resilient and more agile will not only be a part of looking at processes and tools to do it, but there's a huge element of how do you prepare your workforce to cope with those situations in the future.
Yeah. So final question to Jörn. I think you talked about strategy, and what do you think is the most important part? What's surprising to you as a result of this survey?
Yeah, I think the most surprising part is the status where many companies see themselves. Yeah, also linking back to the last question, which or the last point that summarizes everything. So where do we think to be in 2027? Yeah, and I think overall companies are well aware of the tasks that are expected now from board level, from customers, from suppliers. Yeah, the steps how to get there are also, or the single steps are not yet clear. Yeah, but the direction, there's a vision to that, and I think this is a good starting point for many companies. Nevertheless, as mentioned before, they need to be aware really to set the right priorities and to have the guts to make decisions to start the supply chain transformation with a decent speed, with a decent ambition level for new goals.
Okay. So, like I said, we are closing up this webinar. Right after this, we have an extra 30 minutes to talk to Jörn and Kristof. So, if you have more questions, if you are, if you want to have a further conversation with the three of us, join us, please, in the virtual lounge in Airmeet right after this. So, there's more to read on the left-hand side. You can download our consulting supply map to see what they all are doing and servicing. And on the right-hand side, there's a link also to more information about the value chain progression EFESO is providing. And here are the contact details of both Kristof and Jörn. So with this, I want to thank you, Jörn and Kristof. Thank you for explaining in the survey we did together. So Jörn, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, Kristof, also thanking you for this explanation and the collaboration on our side with you. And with this, I would like to thank the audience for listening in, either live or in the recording. So I hope you liked it. If you want to have a further conversation with Jörn and Kristof, please join us right after this in the virtual lounge, and we have a further conversation. And with this, I would like to thank you, and hopefully I will see you again live, face-to-face, or maybe in a webinar in the next weeks. Thanks for now, and say bye-bye.